Welcome to LOA Today. Walt and life coach Tom Wells here. Today is Friday, April the 20th, 2018, 8 a.m. Eastern Time. Your first daily dose of happy for today, and it's a Friday. It's a reason to be happy. I mean, we say that we're happy every day, and we are, but I think most of the population, Tom, can buy into the idea that Fridays are happy days because the work week is coming to an end. So we can all agree today is a happy day.
Yeah, it's become quite a tradition in at least Western world. I don't know what it's like other parts of the world.
Yeah, right.
Friday is the day.
Well, probably also not so much in the but the old aristocracy in Britain. I don't know if you ever watched that TV series Downton Abbey about the aristocracy in the early 20th century. But Maggie Smith, who of course is a fabulous actress, she plays the dowager, and at one point in one scene, somebody says they're going to do something on the weekend, and her reply is, "What's a weekend?"
Yeah, really. Yeah, it's sort of gotten that way for me over the years because I had so many weeks I didn't have to work a regular work week. But still, those days, each day has got a personality that I've attached to it from the most of my life. And it's hard to take those personalities off those days. You know, Friday means this. Monday feels like this. Sunday feels like that.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
You know, and they do. They have a certain feeling.
They do.
And yet when you go without being on a regular work week long enough, they start to kind of forget which day is
They
it.
tend to blend. Yeah.
How should I be feeling today?
Well, plus it's also a good thing, I think, and a fun thing if you can get into it to change the way we feel about days, particularly the ones that we don't feel good about.
Yeah,
you know,
that's a good idea.
So if we can get into that mindset of deciding that no matter what day it is, it's a good day, and then really work on trying to stay there and to believe it and to feel it and to think about it a lot so it becomes a stronger belief, then the days become better, which is a really weird thing, but they really do.
Yeah. Yeah, realizing that it's always in our control. I mean, no matter what mood I'm in when I get up in the morning, I realize I really want this day to be a great experience. So I've got to do whatever I can. I want to do whatever I can to kind of adjust my attitude towards the day so that it's can unfold in the best way possible.
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the things that I've been doing now. I'm in my in the range of the 60 to 70 days. I can't remember what the count is anymore, but number of days I've been doing the mirror exercises. Yeah. And that's one of the things I want to get out of the mirror exercise each day is moving myself, emotionally into that better feeling place. And then
you do it first thing?
Yeah, usually first thing. I mean, there have been a couple days where I did it later in the day because I realized, I didn't do it this morning. But yeah, I'd say like 98% of the time, it's mornings, first thing, right after I get up and feed the cats. The cats they come first, because they're demanding attention, and then I do my mirror exercise. And
that's great.
Yeah, it works out great. So.
Yeah, it's good to have routines. They really help. I've had some clients who didn't have routine, and then they develop one, and man, they start reporting a lot of changes in their lives. Like they get up and they do, say, an appreciation journal, where they write things that they appreciate about their lives, and they make sure they do 15 minutes of meditation. Maybe they use that Abraham-Hicks, CD, right. MP3 about getting into the vortex. And,
that's what we talked about the last few episodes.
They claim it makes a big difference, and that's why I work with clients to learn that stuff and to apply it, because it makes a huge difference in my life.
Do you agree, too, that it's good to do more than one?
For me, it is.
Yeah.
It's definitely, I have sometimes 4 or 5, but because, I'll do Tai Chi. I'll do a set of warm-up exercises, and besides the things that I'm writing. But I don't go after it like a discipline. I actually just do it kind of casual, but I make sure that I do something every morning, always meditation, because meditation, I found after 45 years of meditating that if I don't do it, I can really tell the difference sometimes. 2 or 3 o'clock, I'm wondering why has this day been dragging, or why haven't I felt productive today, or why am I feeling kind of bummed out? And then I say, I never did meditation. Then I'll do it, and I don't know. It's just a very subtle change that happens. Sometimes real obvious change, but I I love meditating.
Isn't that interesting, though, how you're right? I mean, I have the same thing, too. I don't
Do
actually,
you?
meditation isn't part of my routine, but like, for
Hmm.
instance, walking is a big part of my routine. And this winter, I did not get a lot of opportunities to go outside. There were just too many days where,
Mm.
walking just really wasn't going to work.
I
You
see.
get enough snow on the ground and enough ice, it's just not a pleasant thing to do. So you don't tend to
Yeah,
do it.
I know, that's true.
And oh my goodness, I mean, this spring, as spring was coming on, even now I still haven't been able to get out every day because the weather hasn't been, the best. Although it's finally starting to warm up, and I'm really glad about that because my first few times out, I was like, oh my God, I missed this so much. It was
Yeah.
unbelievable how much I missed it. So
That's
yeah,
great.
same kind of thing. That and the other thing that if I don't do this every day. I have a positive playlist on my iPhone, positive music,
Hmm.
and I don't play that every day. But if I go for like a week or more without playing any, I notice that, which is really interesting because it's not a daily routine, and yet
Hmm.
I'm noticing it if it's missing for more than a week. Really interesting.
Hmm. 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 Yeah, these things make a difference. It's interesting, but it's funny that our default is sometimes still to the old pattern of going back into feeling worse instead of, you would think that we would eventually just always default to feeling good. Of course,
Yeah,
because what
yeah.
Abraham said is that that is our natural default state, and I tend to believe that. The teacher I had for so many years from India, he used to always say that our natural default state is feeling good, and I believe it, but I notice how much, at least I can only speak for myself, really, but and a lot of my clients, their default seems to be often for a long time towards not feeling good,
I hear
towards
you.
finding
Yeah.
problems.
Wendy Dillard and I have talked about this a bit over the last few days. How uh, what really is happening whenever you're feeling not good, obviously, is
Hmm.
some level of resistance going on. But the funny
Yeah,
thing is, when you're in the middle of it, you don't always remember. Oh, that's resistance. In fact,
yeah.
I can go days at a time feeling ugh and not knowing why I feel ugh, and then I
Hmm.
climb out of it and then I realize, oh my goodness, I was resisting something.
Hmm.
It takes something. It takes some real presence of mind to recognize I'm not feeling good. Ah, that must be resistance, so that I can do something
Yeah,
about it.
yeah. And that's what our podcast is about today.
Hmm.
What a great introduction.
You know,
Um,
and focus wheels are something you've mentioned before. You've talked about that. I have to admit, I have not really learned anything about focus wheels, so I'm going to be learning along with everybody else about this.
well, do you have a piece of paper and a pen handy?
I do.
Because I could take you through the process on this podcast at some point
All
here.
right. Well, then I
So
will
that you
just
can,
flip over to a new page in my notebook, and we shall begin. I'm ready, Mr.
yeah,
Instructor.
yeah. Well, what's cool about it is that I like the fact that Abraham says that this is the most powerful process that they offer. And, when they're doing these processes, this was actually offered a lot back in the 2000s, like the 2006, 2005, 2004, when I think they first started offering this process and a number of other processes. But they say the reason they say it's so powerful, I guess, is because it's directing your focus. And when we change our focus, that's when we change our moods and everything else.
That is true.
So I found, like yesterday, I was struggling with an expectation. I was going to a friend's house who I had had a difficult time in an encounter with this person the last time I was with him, and then I was concerned going back there that there would be another intense encounter. So I was feeling like I really want to go. I didn't want to go through that same kind of thing
I don't blame
because
you.
I know he was struggling with something, and so I did a big focus wheel on it, and it was really great. It really helped me. And because before that, I was just like you said, I was stuck in this mood that I knew I didn't want to be in, but I also knew that it had a momentum to it that I wasn't finding a way, or even, I don't know if you ever get in the place where you just sort of feel bummed and you don't even know that you want to do something about it. It's
Oh
like it's
yeah.
just,
In fact, there have been times where I said, "Well, I really should do something about it." And the other part of me says, "No, I really don't want to do that."
yeah, yeah, yeah. It almost feels like Well, they say like in depression, I remember the great definition of depression. I used to get depressed in my 20s a little bit. And when I heard this description back then, this would have been in the 70s, but they said, it's like being in a big easy chair, and that sort of you sit in and it swallows you. And, but it's so comfortable to stay in that place of feeling bad and feeling bummed and feeling sad and those kind of feelings that depression has associated with it. But the key to getting out of depression is when you just get yourself up out of that chair. And it's sort of like that for me if I'm ever in any kind of a mood that I don't like, I've got to make this decision. I want to get up and out of this somehow. I want to get up and out of this mood. That's why like going outside and going for a walk is so amazing sometimes, because, we can be inside for so long and get in a certain rut. And then you get out and you start walking and it's like, oh, okay, God, I feel really different now. I feel really relieved. Mm-hmm. Or you go to the gym and you work out, you get all those endorphins going and you come back home and everything you were facing before seems different.
Yeah.
And you're ready to take off on a different approach to it.
Right.
So the focus wheel is like that. So they talk about it being like a playground merry-go-round. I don't know how many of our listeners remember those kind of merry-go-rounds, because they
really don't exist anymore, do they?
They might, but not much, because probably liability lawsuits they're afraid of, because it's a great big giant spinning piece of metal.
Right. Yeah.
The kids, they maybe everybody really kind of knows what it is, but it's a little playground that kids spin, and it gets going really fast, and you get about 8 kids on it, and you can get it going really fast by just keep on running and pushing it. And
they actually almost operate it like a swing, because they're usually on a slight tilt, so that as you get to the bottom part of the arc, you kind of, like on a swing, you kind of lean backward to get more momentum going, and then as each person comes through and does that, the whole wheel starts to go faster and faster.
That's right. And so in this idea of a focus wheel, they compare it to a merry-go-round. And well, first I'll explain what it is. It's like if you want to take that piece of paper that you have there, Walt, and draw a big circle around the whole outside of the edge of the paper, so that you just have a big circle that kind of touches the edges.
Right. And
now in the center, draw a smaller circle that's, I don't know, a few inches across.
Okay.
Maybe three inches across in the circle in the center.
Okay.
Now, what you do is you focus on the circle in the center and close your eyes and think about something in your life that you are having a difficulty with. It may be in the area of work or relationship or money or anything. And think about what it is that you don't like about that situation.
Okay.
You don't have to say it yet, but
okay,
and then think about
deciding what it is I want to focus on. There's so many things to pick from. I don't know what to pick.
Did you get one?
Well, let's see. I've got a couple I'm thinking about. I know which one I'm going to go for. Yeah. Okay. I got it.
Now focus upon that situation. What is it that you clearly know you don't want about that situation?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, what I'm going to suggest you do is up in the top corner of the page, the right or the left, just up there along the margin, write the thing that you definitely don't want.
This is within the larger circle.
No, and you don't have to be in the circle. Do this outside the circle, just sort of up along the edge of the paper. Write what it is you definitely do not want.
Okay.
And maybe keep it short, like simple, if you can. And do you mind telling us, or is this something?
No,
really
it's fine.
private?
That's fine. No, it's no deep dark secret.
Okay.
No, my wish is to have $10 million, and my frustration is that I don't have it, and for the longest time it hadn't seemed like I had been moving in the right direction. Actually, lately I do feel like I'm going in the right direction, but it's not coming fast enough, and I feel like it should have come here yesterday. So that's what my frustration is. And so what I wrote at the top was, I do not want to stay in a poverty mentality.
Okay. Now, right underneath that sentence, write something that you do want. Or actually, let's do it this way. Write it in the center circle.
Okay.
So just in that very center circle on the page, focus on that circle and write the thing that you do want. Sort of that's the opposite of what you don't want.
Okay.
And what you and you included that something that you want to feel. Maybe
Good. I wrote it right then because I wrote I want to have $10 million and I want to feel wealthy.
Okay, you want to feel wealthy. Okay, cool. Now the whole name of this game of the focus wheel is, if you imagine it like this merry-go-round that kids play on,
Mm-hmm.
and the circle that you've drawn, what I want you to do is all around the edge draw a mark where each of the marks on a clock would go for the numbers. So draw, I usually draw first. I draw 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 6 o'clock,
doing
and
that
9.
too. That's exactly what I'm doing.
They're the easiest way
That's
to start.
right. Yeah.
Because then you can make it equally proportionate, and then fill in the 2 between each of those marks. For 1
I just
o'clock,
put marks.
2 o'clock.
I don't actually number the clock.
You could number them if you want to, but I don't. I just make a mark.
Okay.
Because what you're going to do is you're going to make 12 statements. That's the idea of the focus wheel.
Oh, okay.
Or however many you can get to, because there's no requirement here.
I wonder if I have enough room. I may not have a big enough piece of paper here. That's what I'm beginning to think.
Is it a normal size 8.5 by 11 sheet?
No, this is like a 6 by 9 or something like that. But I'll write small.
Okay, yeah, you might have to write smaller. Yeah, it's usually good to have a piece that's at least 8.5 by 11, and of course, then your circle will even be oblong, but it doesn't matter, because what you're going to do is just write these statements in the general vicinity of where you made the mark.
Okay.
Just so that you sort of balance them out around the page.
Right.
Now, what you're going to do, this is a way to raise your vibration, usually from a negative emotion, hopefully to a positive emotion. But even if you're feeling, say, anger and you want to raise it to disappointment, or you're feeling worried and you just want to get to the place where instead of worried, you're just bored, but ideally, yeah, like maybe you're going to take it from worry to hopefulness, or from worry to eager expectation. Who knows?
Well, I like that.
Yeah. Okay. So now what you want to do is, in the first area that would be 12 o'clock at the top, and this is where the merry-go-round analogy comes in. You want to think of a statement. Now, you can say these out loud, and it'll help our listeners and help yourself. Say a statement that will get you on this merry-go-round. If you look at the whole circle as a merry-go-round, what you want to do is see that the reason they use that analogy is because when you try to get on a merry-go-round and you're a little kid, and it's spinning really fast, sometimes you can't get on, or you barely get on, and it throws you off, and then you're in the bushes. And so what you have developed is, we develop a momentum around what we don't want. And that's why we're doing a focus wheel, because you developed a momentum around the fact that you really want $10 million and you still don't have it, and it's taking a long time to get it. And so you can get into a rut, right, of thinking, this is hard to get, or a feeling, and combined with thoughts that this is difficult and I'm not achieving it, and why aren't I achieving it? So I assume you've had some momentum like that going on, right?
Well, of course, because I don't have the $10 million, so clearly I have.
Yeah, right. And to whatever degree that bothers you, or that we obsess about things, like with my going to see my friend yesterday, I was obsessing about the fact that, oh my God, I don't want to get in another one of those discussions with him that was so intense that it lasted 3 hours, because he was upset.
Yep. And
I was trying to make it okay, or I was just trying to endure the conversation. So I had momentum going. So I created this focus wheel. Now, the first one at 12 o'clock, think of a statement that'll get you on this wheel that feels that it's aligned with the thing you've put in the center. So
So
Once again, read the thing you put in the center.
The 12 o'clock position then is where I am writing something in that feels very close to the center and does not feel very close to the top comment.
It doesn't feel close to the thing you don't want. It feels close to what you do want.
Right.
But
okay.
It can be anywhere on the journey to getting towards where you want. And so you try on statements. So what's a statement that would come to you that could just be aligned with the thing that you want?
Oh, okay. So, like for instance, I'm glad that we were able to buy our ideal home with cash.
Yeah, that would be one. Now, are you saying something that you're imagining or that you actually did?
That I'm imagining.
You're imagining. Okay. Yeah, you can do a focus wheel that way, I'm sure.
You think it's better to do it on what I'm actually experiencing?
Yeah, let's try it with what you're actually experiencing. Okay. Let's try it like you're coming. Let's say you want to get out of this place where you've been feeling bummed about not having what you want and not seeing it coming about. So if you really deal with those feelings, those negative feelings, what's a statement that could raise you out of that and move you towards, a very believable statement. See, the reason you only want to make statements that you really, really believe.
Okay. So for instance, Cindy Chavez and I had a conversation about this a while back, and she actually did a little thing for a 10-day period. Amazing. She did this 1,000 times a day. She used the affirmation to herself, I feel rich. And she liked I feel rich because you don't have to be rich in order to feel rich. So that makes it more believable in her mind. And I like that. I think that's a good point. I also believe that I can at least imagine, yes, I can feel what rich is like. And the way I imagine that is I remember a time where it was actually the last the last employed job I had where I was employed by a company. And that job, I was paid far more than I'd ever been paid before. So there was like a palpable increase in my standard of living taking that job. And I remember that feeling. And that to me is the feeling of the freedom that comes from having, the money, all the money that you want. So I can kind of tap into that and say, yeah, I know what that feels like. I feel rich. I know what it feels like to feel like that.
That's a good one to put in the 12 o'clock, is that I know what it feels like to feel rich.
Okay. All right.
As long as you really do feel good about that.
Yeah.
And so this whole idea here is that Abraham has said that if you stick with a feeling, a thought and a feeling, that for 17 seconds, that it'll attract another vibrational feeling that's similar.
Yeah,
so what this focus wheel is, you're actually creating this process of 17 seconds. You don't have to time it or anything, but just by putting a focus on that you just did just now, you told a little story about it. It got you into the vibration of, I know what it feels like to feel rich. And you write that at 12 o'clock. Now that have you written that?
Yeah, I know what it feels like to be rich. I've got that written up there.
Now, what's one that you could imagine for 1 o'clock? What's something that just bubbles up, that comes, that gives you a good feeling? What you really want for each of the positions on the clock, you might say, is each of the 12 positions, you want something that improves your vibration, or at least it heads you in the direction of an improved vibration. That's something you can believe, that you can write in each of the positions. So what's something that you can imagine to put there next?
I wrote, I love the feeling of freedom that comes with money.
Oh, okay. That's great. How about 2 o'clock then?
Let's see. I love being able to take my wife out to dinner anytime we want to.
That's a good one. Really good.
I got to write that down. I'm going to have to do this in shorthand.
Yeah.
Okay. And so like a 3 o'clock. So I'm basically coming up with 12 ways to identify what it is that I love about this thing that I'm trying to attract.
Yeah, or anything that raises your vibration. I'm going to give some other examples, and you don't have to finish this all right now, but you could work on it after, because there are often situations like where I was at yesterday, where I was at an impasse with myself. I was literally stuck, and it didn't feel good at all.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's rare for me anymore to get to that place. And so I was glad. That's what prompted me wanting to do a podcast on it, because I remembered the focus wheel and decided to do one, because I felt, I've got to find a way, because I literally was thought of, I should call my friend and say I can't come, maybe give an excuse or something, because I don't want to say that I'm afraid you're going to, go off again and on this crazy emotional roller coaster we were on. But instead, I decided to do a focus wheel to see if I could raise my vibration to the point that I could go to dinner at his house with him and his wife and not feel like impacted and backed up about expecting this problem to reoccur.
Well, that's good. I like that. I like the fact that you do that. And it occurs to me there are a couple of really important components to this in terms of understanding how it works. The first one is you identify what it is that you don't like, which you have to do. We all have to do that, because we live in a world of contrast. And the way to always start is to start with, this is what I don't like. Because otherwise you don't know what to change, right?
Yeah, it's good to identify it, what it is, and how does that feel? What is it you don't like? What's the feeling associated with it? And then go for, okay, what is it that I desire? What is it that I want?
And that's also usually the first stumbling point, because very often we're so caught up with what it is that we don't like that we haven't even thought in terms of what we do like. And so and in fact, isn't it true the most common way that we express it is, well, I don't like not having $10 million. So what I want to have is to not have a lack of $10 million. Right?
Yeah, you focus on it's still stated in a negative way.
That's right.
Yeah, right. No, I was thinking of that because there's this Buddhist thing where I guess it's Buddhist, but I don't know. You basically, it's a non-dualistic thinking, and you say, like, if you're feeling afraid, you say, who in me is not afraid? It's something that you can contemplate. So his friend told me to do this contemplation the other day, and she was using that technique. So who is not afraid? And then as I was doing it, I thought, wait a minute, I don't even want the word afraid in my contemplation.
Right,
so
yeah.
I said, who is well resourced? That's what I said. Or who is confident?
Who is confident?
And just, I started thinking of the positive ways of saying it.
Who feels
sitting
courage.
there and contemplating who's not afraid, keeps me remembering, I'm afraid. Something in me is afraid. And but again, that is admitting, something in me does feel afraid, but now.
But you got to climb out of it. That's the thing. You're not going to climb out of it by staying in that thought. Yeah.
I think I climb out things, and you know what? I could feel a change in my consciousness as soon as I said, who is confident? Who is well resourced? Immediately, this flood of feeling of, oh yeah, that's who I am.
It's a very different feeling.
I'm this confident being. I'm this well resourced being.
Yeah.
I'm not the one who's like struggling with, I'm afraid.
Right. Oh yeah. There's no doubt about it. When we change it around, when we do so, we change the feeling, and when we change the feeling, we change the power of it. Now the thought takes on an entirely different vibration in Abrahamic terms. It takes on an entirely different feel, and that feel makes a huge difference.
And I think that's why you're pointing out that getting to the point where you can put that statement in the center is a big step in and of itself.
It is. It's a big, big step. And it's not easy to do in all cases. I mean, sometimes we are so locked into what it is we don't want that it can take quite some time to find a way to phrase it in the positive. But it's well worth the activity. It's well worth the exercise.
That's why I love focus wheels, because if you can remember that it's a tool to use when you're really feeling impacted or you really want relief, you just can't stand the fact that you're suffering through your mind in this way, or this feeling of heaviness and this feeling of, overwhelm and disappointment or whatever it is. And then you just say, okay, I'm getting out a piece of paper and I'm going to do this, and you do it. And it really does bring a change that then begins to take place. And I've really experienced sometimes when I go completely around the circle, sometimes by the time I'm even at number 6, where the 6 o'clock would be, I'm on a roll. And then the last 5 are really easy to write down. They just flow.
Yeah.
And then you even go back to the center. I'm going to read some examples that I have from Abraham book, called The Amazing Power of Deliberate Intent.
Mm-hmm.
And they give several examples of people who are feeling incredibly backed up and how they get themselves to finally get to say statements that work for their focus wheel. Should I do that?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's hear it.
Okay. Well, here's, for example, let me get one that, let's see, like maybe that would, let's say someone's feeling really lonely. And so they're saying to themselves, I don't have many friends. Really, I don't even have one truly close friend. It's not much fun going through life alone. I've had friendships in the past, but nothing that ever has really clicked for me.
Are you writing about my past? Because it certainly sounds like it.
No, mine. It seems as if people are just looking for what they can get out of me, and then they don't really want to give anything back to me. I feel discouraged. I feel lonely. So then your statement of what you don't want is, I don't want to be alone. And then your statement of what you do want is, I want to find a really good friend. That could be an example. I want to find a really good friend. So then you try to get on the focus wheel. So if you're really, and maybe a lot of you people, you beautiful people listening, can remember a time when you felt that way. And I know I can, and Walt, I'm sure you can, where you felt like you are that backed up. And so, So the first statement that this person says is, they're trying to come up with a good statement to put as that 12 o'clock position. And they go, they have that one in the center, which says, I want to find a really good friend. They put that in the center of their wheel. And then at 12 o'clock, they try to say, a good friend is hard to find. That's the first thing that comes to them, because they're still feeling backed up. They've got a momentum about it. So they go, a good friend's hard to find. And they go, oh, that doesn't work. And then they go, let's see, I've never really had a good friend, because they're bummed out. So they say that. That's the second thing they say.
Oh, yeah.
And then the third thing, finally they go, I do see other people who have good relationships. Well, that's a little bit of an improvement. So they put that in the 12 o'clock position. Okay. I do see other people who have good relationships. And then that's close enough in the vibrational range of their desire. So they put that in the 12 o'clock spot on the wheel. And then that because they said that one, they say, I have met some people who I enjoy being with. So they put that at 1 o'clock. Then they put, this isn't something I should try to force into happening. So they put that at 2 o'clock. Mm-hmm. 3 o'clock, they put, I will know immediately when I meet someone I'd like to know better. At 4 o'clock, they put, usually when I really like someone, they usually like me too. So their resistance has obviously subsided already a lot. And so they keep going, and they fill out the rest of them with things like, it's really, there are nice people all around. There are others that are looking for relationships too. As I feel better, others who feel good will begin to show up. There are many ways to meet new people. I do like being with people. It feels like a new beginning. So we could finish out your circle if you want to, and see what else comes to you. Yeah. Because that's really the way it improves.
The thing that I noticed there's a very big similarity, isn't there, between the focus wheel and bridging? Because bridging is where you start with what feels really bad, and then you reach for a slightly better feeling, and you write that down, and then you reach for a slightly better feeling than that, and you write that down, and you're trying to incrementally move yourself up to a better and better and better feeling place. And that's what you're doing. You just described it. What you just read there was each statement getting slightly incrementally better than the last one.
Yes, in a way, it's what a rampage of appreciation is in a certain way, because you just almost like this whole Abraham law of attraction work, a huge part of it is training ourselves to say statements to ourselves that head us in a better feeling direction. It's the whole thing of telling a better feeling story. It's the whole thing of bridging, like you say. It's beginning to say things to ourselves that actually are encouraging, that actually are hopeful, that actually are taking us in that direction. And doing it in a way that you don't necessarily try to jump to some extreme of immediately saying, I can imagine having $10 million. Well, you could say that. I mean, you could say whatever you want, but
Well, it might be hard to say, I have $10 million.
You just have to ask yourself do the feelings really work when you say them? Because if it works and you get a better feeling, then to me, good. It's like, well, that's great. Put it on there, put it on your circle or put it on your list of improved thoughts. And those also can become the basis of affirmations too. Mm-hmm. Like if and they can be really creative affirmations because they came out of your creative thinking about your problem, about your situation. And let's say, what's the one you put in 2:00 position?
2:00. Let's see. I can read my own writing. It says, I love being able to take my wife out to eat whenever I want to.
Yeah. Now you see how that could be an affirmation. I mean, if you wanted to, every day you could say, I make enough money to take my wife to eat at any restaurant I want to eat at whenever I want to.
Mm-hmm.
Or you could say, I can walk into any store and buy anything that I want to,
mm-hmm.
Or something that you want. So you can begin to see how they can become these affirmations that if they have a charge for you, that's good, that because you feel like that's why I want the money. I want the money, what's another one that you would put at the 3:00 position that would lead you towards the thing in the center?
I love having the money because now we can travel anywhere we want to.
Mm-hmm.
That's a huge one for me, by the way. And that's one where I probably wouldn't put that first because that's a little bit of a stretch of imagination for me. It's not a big stretch. It used to be a big stretch. I've been working on it long enough now that I'm now really believing that that's possible. But it was a harder one for me to reach. So that's probably more like an 11:00 than a 3:00.
Mm-hmm.
A 3:00? Let's see. What else would be a 3:00? Actually, before I even think of what that 3:00 might be, one thing that occurs to me is this is a great thing to do because it actually makes us sit down and come up with these things. Coming up with them is probably even bigger than repeating them.
It is. I think for me, it's I go back and look at a focus wheel afterwards. Like here, I've got the one that I did last night, and I go back and I look at what I wrote, and all of these things that I wrote show me that I'm resourceful. They show me that I know how. Like one of them, I said, if the conversations get weird, I can follow my breath as a fallback. I put, I can ask my friend to focus less on the downside of the situation. I can ask them. I can expect things to go well. I mean, that's something I can apply in any situation.
Mm-hmm.
I can ask for help from my inner being, from
mm-hmm.
the higher unseen realm or whatever you want to call it, from my higher self. I can ask for help.
Yeah.
I can focus on good feeling thoughts and good feelings in my body rather than listening to the negative comments that are coming at me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Another one, I can leave.
Yeah, that's true. You can. How about that?
I can gracefully leave. Yeah. So, just different things. They often become the same resources I could use in other situations.
Mm-hmm.
And then you start seeing, I'm a resourceful person who finds a way in any situation to improve my vibration. I can raise my vibration anytime I want.
So you asked what my 3:00 is. I think my 3:00 is I love getting wealthier with my wife. I love the idea of us doing it together.
That's nice.
Yeah. That's actually a very big thing for me.
Uh-huh. That's great.
Even before we met, we've been together now, it'll be we met 20 years ago actually in 2 weeks. May 2nd, 1998 was when we met. Yeah.
That's a big event. 20
years.
How
about that? 20 years. And before we met, one of my big goals was to meet somebody who I would not only want to live with and spend my life with, but I wanted to have great improvements in life with, and maybe do a business together with, and
mm-hmm.
Just investigate stuff together, and really a partner. A true partner, not just a love partner, but a partner in every way.
That's great.
Yeah, and that's what's happening. It's what's been happening over this 20-year period, and I think it's about to accelerate in a big, big way. I think it is already accelerating, actually. So, yeah.
Really?
So for
Great.
me, the idea of I love getting wealthier with my wife, that is a really strong feeling for me. So I'm gonna write that down
Yeah.
with my wife. Yeah.
Have you noticed your feelings changing from the negative statement? I imagine, obviously you do, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why I was mentioning that it really is more powerful to go through the exercise of writing these down than it is to do the affirmations. Not that we shouldn't do the affirmations, we absolutely should, but the writing them down, we're really making ourselves focus on that positive in a way we haven't done before. We're making ourselves sit down and come up with literally 12 different reasons why it is that the thing in the center is true.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's really what we're doing.
Esther Hicks was saying that she did this obsessively for months and months. I don't know, for a really long time. I don't know if she still does it, but she would start every day with focus wheels. She would just
Create
go
a new one?
sit in her garden and do focus wheels.
Yeah.
Because you can do it for any aspect of your life. And if it really works and if it helps, I mean, if I can get to the place where I'm telling myself more and more positive statements because I practiced myself into that way of thinking, so that no matter what comes up, I think of all these things on the focus wheel. I could just even imagine one in my head. I don't even have to have a wheel. I could just start naming, the things that are leading me in that direction that are believable to me. Because sometimes to say things that are really extreme, they don't really stick because I don't believe them.
Right.
So
yeah, and I love the idea of doing multiple focus wheels because that's what you were talking about that you've done and that Esther's done and so forth. Mm-hmm. That when you're doing multiple wheels, what you're basically doing is kind of pushing yourself to come up with new ways of thinking about whatever it is that you're wanting on a regular basis, which is the best thing of all. Because once we get into that frame of mind where we can, practically on demand, come up with like 12 different reasons, 12 different feeling-based reasons about why it is we want what we really want and expressed in the positive rather than not the negative. When we can actually express it in the positive and we're practicing coming up with ways to express that in the positive, that is a powerful exercise. That's a powerful process. Because now it isn't just that we're training our minds with positives, it's that we're training our minds to come up with positives and to do it regularly, which means we're creating constantly. I love that.
Yeah, and even if the things are not immediately bringing us to $10 million, because I was reading one where this couple was making a focus wheel and they felt like they were in debt, and they were in debt so much that the statement they were making to themselves was, like, I don't see how we'll ever get out of debt. And, it seems like, we're screwed, kind of like, like we really are in a bad situation. But as they made their statements, you could look at it and go, well, that didn't get them out of debt, but it got them on the path to begin to have hope and to begin to see that they can make statements other than the fact that, we're buried and we don't know how we're ever going to get out of this. And I don't see any way we're ever going to make enough money to pay off this debt. They started to say some things, that made them feel hopeful.
It's
so
interesting
sometimes
too.
Maybe that's all it is, but you know what? The next day and the next day or a week from then or a month from then, you could do another one and you could see that you've already improved your situation or that you're raising or maybe just to keep yourself from feeling overwhelmed by the debt. You keep doing focus wheels and
well, it's interesting. We've just done from 12 o'clock to 3 o'clock. So we've done 1/4 of my clock here, 1/4 of my focus wheel. And after doing that 1/4, that's when you mentioned the whole thing about debt. Do you know up until that point the word debt hadn't even occurred to me? Now, that's significant because I do have some debt to get rid of. But here I am doing this exercise. I got to 3 o'clock and debt was so far away from my consciousness, I couldn't even think of it until you brought it up.
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. That's all right. This actually is a good thing because it shows just how effective this wheel is. I mean, I would be dishonest to say that debt doesn't hang around on the back of my mind. And here I found a way for a few minutes to just completely obliterate it while thinking about money. Whoa, that's a good thing.
And well, can you imagine if we really believe that if we stay 17 seconds with a thought and a feeling, that it attracts another vibration similar to that, another thought, another feeling similar, and that at the end of 68 seconds?
68 seconds, 4 times 17,
Yeah, at the end of 68 seconds, they say we have locked it in a way that it's going to be a lot more likely to stay with us, and that will add additional momentum. So if we were to do focus wheels consistently, they say that this is the most powerful process they offer. And I've heard a lot of people say, I can't do focus wheels. I don't do focus wheels. This is other law of attraction coaches I've talked with and things. And some do, but I'd say a lot of them say they don't. I'm not sure the reason why. I've done them a bit, but not near what I'm advocating right now today, and it's making me want to do them a lot more because of the good experience I had with it. The amount of times that I've done it, I've probably only done, like maybe 15 or 20 of these in the last 4 or 5 years that I've been playing with this stuff. But every time it does make a difference, and every time it does
I think
help.
I actually understand why it is people don't want it and why they find that it doesn't work for them. Because it's like any other process where you're really stretching yourself, that's not comfortable. Stretching yourself is not a comfortable thing to do. So you really have to want it. You have to really want it in order to do the work. That's a tough kind of work to do. Stretching yourself is tough. What most of us really want is we want to utter the magic words. I want this. Right. I believe this. I believe firmly in it. I believe firmly in it. Okay, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's not actually doing any work on ourselves. But we want it to just be, okay, I uttered the magic words. I waved my magic wand. It's going to show up. And, as long as there is no resistance, it will show up. Here's the rub. Most of the time, there's resistance.
Yeah.
So if we want to get the resistance out of the way, we have to say, okay, I'm willing to do the work. And that's why I say it really depends on how much you want it. You got to want it.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with what you say, that I think there's a bit of a stretch to come up with these 12 statements and then to also look at them and say, these things are things that I believe are helping me get out of this negative place.
Yes.
Of course, you don't want to just have it be based on belief, but sometimes I know my mind wants to look at, my problem and say, no, the problem is overwhelming, or the problem is so big that writing these statements is just like doing affirmations. It doesn't stick, it's just a bunch of words. It's just a little bit of Band-Aid I put on the wound, but the wound really needs so much more than a Band-Aid. And if we want to think that way, that's also a choice that we might want to question. Do I want to keep putting myself in this idea that my problem is that difficult? Because then it will stay that way if I believe that. And if I can believe in the focus wheel, and maybe I do one today and it only gives me 50%, or a little bit of hope, but then I do one again, and then I do one again, and I develop this propensity for thinking this way. That's the cool thing.
It is. Actually, you've touched on something that bothered me for the longest time. For the longest time, I didn't even do affirmations of any kind. I just wouldn't do them. I had to kind of sneak in the back door to doing them because I couldn't just, write 5 affirmations and then repeat them to myself every day. And the reason I couldn't do it wasn't so much because I didn't believe it. And I might believe it, I might not. It varied, from one set of affirmations to the next. But even if I believed them, I still wouldn't do the exercise. And the reason I wouldn't do the exercise had nothing to do with the belief. What it actually had to do with was the belief in the process. Mm-hmm. I mean, if I tried to just write 5 affirmations and repeat them every day, I guarantee by day 3 I am bored to tears. Like, this is so meaningless to me.
How did Cindy do that? She just did it 1,000 times a day?
Yeah, she did it 1,000 times a day. I was really impressed that she was able to do that. Well, she actually manifested some money, which was really cool. Do you want to hear the story? It's a really funny story. It's good. she decided that she wanted to do a whole bunch of affirmations. She wanted to make that really high goal of doing 1,000 a day, and she wanted to use an affirmation that she could believe. So that's why she chose "I feel rich," because she may not be rich, but for her, it was well within reach to say, "Oh, okay, I can feel what that would be like. I may not actually have the money, but I can certainly feel what it would be like." So she decided, okay, I'm going to do this. So she did it, and she actually did 1,000 a day. In fact, she got so good at it. I asked her, "How do you do 1,000 a day? That seems incredible." She says, "You'd be amazed when you actually do them. You do them in little chunks. You don't try to do them all at once. And when you actually time it out, you've only spent like maybe an hour."
Is she writing or just saying?
No, just reciting it. Just reciting, walking around saying, "I feel rich. I feel rich. I feel rich."
Yeah.
But here's what happened. Here's what manifested out of it. Within a few days of doing it, in the midst of her 10-day cycle, she got a check in the mail. And the check was for $50 to their favorite restaurant, $50 off a meal. Now, they were going to go to the restaurant anyway. They just like going there. But here was $50 that just came out of thin air. So she thought, well, that's pretty cool. I wonder what else is going to happen. So she kept going with it. And then they have a car that had mechanical problems and had to go into the shop. Well, the particular mechanic they go to will give them a loaner. It's a car dealership, right? So they'll give them a loaner. I think what they drive is a Mercedes. I can't remember for sure. But that Mercedes went into the shop and they got a new Mercedes. So they were driving a brand new Mercedes for it was supposed to be for a few days while it gets fixed. Well, here's the really funny part of the story. Not only are they feeling rich because they're driving this brand new Mercedes around, but even more than that, as they're driving day by day by day, they're saying, well, this can't last real long. I mean, the car's going to get fixed one of these days. Well, guess what? It took over 3 weeks for the car to get fixed. And during that 3-week period, the car dealership said, well, we got to get this car back because we just sold it. So we're going to give you another new car to drive. So it was like the endless cycle of brand new Mercedes that they're driving. And then, meanwhile, they're saying, "I feel rich. I feel rich." I mean, it was great. What a great story that was. And that was all within a 10-day period that happened. So
that's beautiful.
Yeah.
There's one of the coaches in the Law of Attraction coaching training that I've done. She put up something on Facebook this last week where she was decided to do affirmations and she's writing them. So I don't remember how many times she wrote, I now have allowed $10,000 into my life or something like that. It was something about I'm creating $10,000, and she had only been doing it for a few days, and her boss walked in to her office and one day and gave her a $9,000 raise.
Ooh, nice.
And she had needed a raise for 4 years or something, she said. But once she started doing this affirmation, it came, and she had been waiting forever for a raise. And she didn't even know how the $10,000 was going to come. She was just writing that down. And something else happened that kind of made up the difference between the 9 and the 10. But it was a pretty amazing story. I thought that she did it and she got that result.
Yeah, so that's great.
If you can get your vibration to the place, this is all it really comes down to, right? We get our vibration into this place, and these things begin to happen.
By the way, I was talking earlier about how I love the idea of getting wealthy with my wife. Well, what Cindy was doing with her husband was picking up on her mantra, because he saw her walking around saying, "I feel rich, I feel rich." And he asked her, "What are you doing?" And so she explained to him what she was doing. So she'd be walking around saying, "I feel rich." And he'd echo back, "I feel rich." And they'd do this, "I feel rich," building a routine together.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's even
then
better.
They're riding around in the Mercedes together.
That's right. Exactly.
Going out to eat together. Yeah, they're sharing in that.
I kind of wish that she'd kept it going. I wonder, because that was like a few weeks ago that she stopped doing it. I wonder what would have happened, what would have manifested if she'd kept going.
I don't know. That it's funny. This the head of the Good Vibe University that I work with sometimes, Jeanette Ma, she one day decided, this was about a year ago, that she wanted to have $6,000 come from a completely unexpected source, because she has money coming in all the time because she's pretty successful as a life coach and all that stuff she does.
Yep.
And so she just said, I want $6,000 to just come completely from out of the blue.
Mm-hmm.
and it did. It did within several days. She
Wow.
created the entire $6,000, and she was so talking all about it. So then, without telling anybody in her Facebook group, she decided to do it again. But she happened to tell me this privately eventually, because I was doing some coaching with her. But that she had decided to create $6,000 again, and this time it didn't happen. So she was looking closely at the difference between her vibration the first time and her vibration the second time, and she could see a lot of differences in the fact that she was there's the enthusiasm she had for the first time, and the just the assumption that of course I'm going to create $6,000, and she had a lot of things going for her that first time around that the second time around those things weren't in place in the same way, and she didn't create it the second time. I thought that was interesting.
It is interesting, and I'll tell you, I fully endorse what she's saying there. I had a conversation with somebody on Facebook. There's a new group that somebody's created. I think they call it Advanced Law of Attraction or something like that. And they're only inviting certain people in who they feel are going to help promote the goal of everybody in the group becoming seven-figure earners every year.
Oh.
And so this one person had come in, and this person was posting a message that's something like, words are powerful. Be careful what words you use because the words are powerful. And I know that to a certain degree that's true, but I also recognized as soon as I saw the post that it was incomplete, because the emotions are just as important, if not even more important than the words. If you just say a word, the words emptily without having any kind of feeling behind them, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah, that's the problem with affirmations. Yeah. That's why they become so boring.
Exactly. If there's no feeling, then you might as well just not even say them. There's no difference between saying them and not saying them. Yeah. And ultimately, we had this little exchange where we agreed that words are really just containers. And it's what goes inside the box that makes all the difference. And what goes inside the box, of course, is the emotion that goes with the actual thought. And how does all that feel? How do the words actually feel? How do we experience them in our thought process and in our lives? What's it like to have those words rather than just treating them as empty shells? That makes a huge difference. That's a gigantic thing.
I recommend. I don't recommend that any client do any process that they don't have a good feeling about, and that when they do it, they don't feel good. And even if you do affirmations and they, you start to just do them as a routine, and then you don't see results, that can actually almost be a negative message to yourself. I try really hard and I still don't get any results. I do these affirmations and they don't bring me what I want. That's, starts to become another deep-seated thought in us. So it's really important, I think, to go with the things that have a good feeling. Go with the things and do them as long and when you have a good feeling about them. Like the focus wheel, Esther said she got to the point where she was doing them obsessively, and Abraham suggested that she quit doing them because she was just way obsessing about it. I was listening to a psychic talk yesterday who was saying, often the things that we want the most come when we are the least attached to having them happen. When we just sort of put it out to the universe, I want $10 million, and then we forget about it. And then, like a year later, we realize, I remember a year ago, I said I wanted $10 million, and gosh, I've made 8 million.
Yeah, right.
You go, it's amazing. I didn't even think about it, but it's happened almost to exact amount that I wanted. That would happen to me so many times in my college textbook business, where I would make the exact amount that I said I wanted to make at 10 in the morning. I'd be on a college campus and I'd go, I want to make $1,500 today. And then I'd just forget about it and I'd go through my day. But so many times it'd be like 5 o'clock and I'm going, oh my God, I made $1,515.
Yeah, right.
That was my total, or $1,495. That happened for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of days to me, for years upon end, that I would set a goal and I would make it just by setting the goal. It was like, and of course, sometimes I would actually count backwards. I'd be watching the goal all day long, like, okay, now I made 700, now I made 900, now I made 1,100. But,
yeah, that's pretty incredible. Well, this has been a good show. Unfortunately, as usual, we always run out of time right when we're getting really excited about it. But we'll have to carry on the topic. Maybe this is one of those evergreen topics we can do again next week. But Tom, have a great weekend.
Thank you, Walt. You too.
I will do. Actually, I'm going to an Abraham-Hicks workshop tomorrow, so I'm going to have a really good weekend.
Oh, I want to be hearing about that.
Yeah, so it's going to be good. So anyway, yeah,
Cool.
we'll talk to you next week, and we hope that all our listeners come back as well next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.